So you are with the Bricklayers and Allied Craft Workers, Local 1, and you are a union organizer.
Yes.
If you don't mind me asking, I would like you to just kind of introduce yourself and what are your responsibilities and duties to the Bricklayers and Allied Crafts.
So my name is Cam Bruno. I work for Bricklayers Local 1. I work as an organizer in Indigenous relations. So part of my job is to help unionize non-union contractors and educate non-union bricklayers more about what we do here. Partly educating them on their rights as a worker. The other side of my job for Indigenous relations is to create inroads for our contractors and First Nation communities and create employment and apprenticeship opportunities for the people of the nation.
You're the first person that I've gotten the opportunity to talk to when it comes to like Indigenous relations. So how do you go about doing that?
It's really developing a good relationship with the community, giving them that trust that we're here to help and not to take anything from them. We want to create employment opportunities for their community members.
Has it been challenging, if you don't mind me asking?
It has been challenging. I think from previous relationships that with communities I've had in the past, where might have been some lies told.
Or promises that weren't delivered?
Or promises, yes, that weren't kept, right?
So how much success have you had, if you don't mind me asking, in regards to the relations that you have?
So we've had quite a bit of success. So we did a training program with Musqueam's First Nation. We took 11 students through a 5-week course. So the students got high school credits and hours towards a blue book. It's quite successful. It took a little bit of talking to the community. It took about 500 days from the very first phone call to the actual program completion.
So is that program still in place?
No, it actually finished up. It was just a 5-week program, and that was our first. We actually just finished our second program with Goodfish Lake.
So for people who aren't familiar with that, do you mind giving me a rundown of like what that all entailed?
What we call it is a job readiness program. So they understand what it is that we do on a day-to-day basis in a trade.
So you're a union organizer, and before that, what did you do?
So I started in about 2003. I started with one of our bigger contractors. They're still a signatory contractor. Started as a laborer, became an apprentice, and then got my journey person ticket through them. I stayed with them for about 8 or 9 years. And then what happened was I kind of wanted to move on. I wanted to explore different parts of the trade. So I got into the industrial side. And then I worked the industrial side for about another 8 years. I left the industry. I was kind of getting tired of it. Wanted to try some other things. And then I got a call from our business manager asking me if I wanted to come in and work for the union directly.
About 16, 18 years on the tools. Mm-hmm. And then you progressed from there into the position you're in now. So if you don't mind just going back on that, like how did that end up happening? Like, was it a shock to your system, if you don't mind me asking, going from like the comfort of being on the tools or the familiarity of that to the position you're in now?
Yes, it was, it's still I'm still adjusting because you're so used to the field and the process and the time that it takes to finish a job. Our job is continuous. Instead of a job being a couple months, it's continuous here. So it's just understanding the pace of things, that not everything's going to get accomplished in one day. You know, there's an order of things. We have steps to take before we complete a job, right?
So when you're talking about like a job completion, for example, being on the tools, I have task A where maybe today I just need to mobilize material from here to here and set ourselves up for tomorrow. What is a job completion for you as an organizer?
Completion for me is, so roughly our job takes about 90 days as an organizer for a campaign.
Okay.
So that takes us instilling confidence about a worker's rights to somebody, getting them to understand it, signing a petition card, and us submitting that petition card to labor relations. So how this works is totally voluntary, totally confidential. We mention that to everybody. We give people the information that this is fact, this is truth, and it's a right as a worker. We submit that to labor relations, and then what'll happen is the company will go into a voting stage. So 60% of the bricklayers would have to vote on this in order for that company to be unionized. So we have about 90 days for that whole process to take place. There's 2 ways this happens. Route 1 is a contractor comes in, says we want to be a union company, and something called a voluntary recognition.
It is a voluntary recognition.
Voluntary recognition is an employer coming in and then agreeing to our contracts.
And this is where the 2 options come from.
Yes. And so that would be, we would consider that a top down. The bottom up is the other way around. It's the employees understanding their rights as a worker in Alberta, and then them calling us, talking to us, getting educated, and then we go after them through an application process. An organizer is an educator. That's essentially what we're doing out there. We're talking to people, helping them understand their rights as a worker in Alberta, that they have legal rights that help them to unionize companies.
So as an organizer, is it challenging or difficult when people reach out to you? We'll say the employees reach out and there's no follow-up.
No, generally what we'll do is we'll try and keep in contact with those people. Some people might have hints of confidence to call from time to time, and then they'll feel confident to ask us questions and get educated. I want to do this. Let's make this happen, Cameron. So that's part of our job, is getting out there, educating people on their rights. It's tough on the other end because of employer intimidation. So employees in Alberta have to understand their rights, and employer intimidation is a thing that is illegal. People don't understand that getting threatened to get fired because you're trying to unionize is illegal. They have to understand that. Instilling confidence, and that's almost why these campaigns that we do deflate. It's why they stop, because people generally get scared. And this is where workers' rights come in. They have to understand their rights as an employee. Employer intimidation is hurting the industry.
As an organizer, what are some rights you would want people to know about? Non-union, your CLAC, what are things that you have seen in the position you're in that you wish more people knew about?
Employer intimidation is probably the biggest one. That one makes my job the toughest.
Give me some examples of like intimidation. Obviously, like having your job held over your head and whatnot, but
we'll close the business down and we're going to stay shut, and you guys won't have a job further.
which are all illegal.
It is illegal.
So if I was an employer and you reached out to Local 1, you wanted to organize, you guys want to become union, and I sat there and I told you I will shut the company down and I will fire all of you, that's illegal.
That's illegal. It's a scare tactic, which is illegal.
Something I see a lot of people will say is, I make more money working non-union in comparison to union. We have the highest standard of the rates that we put out. And as an example, we're going to charge a bricklayer out at $100 an hour, just to make it really simple for people. Out of that $100 an hour, 25 would go into your pension, and then another 25 into your benefits. That $50 that's left over, that goes to the member. That's their pay, right? Just to make it really simple. A non-union outfit comes onto the job site, same thing. They're charging the exact same rates, but that $50 that's supposed to go into benefits and pension, the employer will skim that and put in their pocket and give you that $50. But you're not getting a pension or benefits, so you're taking that out of your own pocket. In your experience, how has it been trying to show people and like open their eyes? Are you met with resistance?
Trying to get somebody to understand that the rate they're getting as a non-union bricklayer is not really the rate they're getting. They have to understand that you got to take out your pension and benefits from that, like you're saying. So right now we'll be contributing $4 into a pension. They have to subtract that if they're going to put something like that into an RSP.
You're saying if they're working non-union?
Yes.
Okay.
So if a non-union bricklayer is working and they're getting $50 an hour, you subtract $4 for pension. So take that right off the top. And then you got to subtract your benefits from that. And so our benefits work out to be about $6,000 a year. So you got to subtract that from your rate. Again, you're going to be closer to $40 an hour. Members have to understand that. Non-union members have to understand that as well. These are the benefits. What you're getting is what you're getting. You're not having anything subtracted from that.
When we say like this is your package, that's your package.
Yes.
When you say include in the package, so whatever hourly rate I'm getting, that's mine. On top of that, here is your pension and your benefits. That is not being subtracted from that. That's included on when they bid you on that job.
That's right. It's already in the package.
Actually, here's a question for you. So you got into this back in 2003, but before you got into the Bricklayers Union, like what were you doing before? Like, did you have family members that were in this union? Like, how did you end up getting into this?
I got out of high school in about 2000. I had some dead-end jobs, just kind of weren't going anyplace. I had some opportunities on a community. One was to be a framer. The other one was to be a firefighter. So I had these options, and my dad actually wanted me to be an electrician on the community. That was kind of the idea at the beginning, and then I wanted to try something else. So I had a cousin that was doing this job. He's actually building a jail in Yellowknife, and he came back on his days off, and he said, I got a new job. And I said, what are you doing? He's like, well, I'm a laborer for a masonry company. I didn't know what it was. I said, well, can you get me a job? He said, I don't think you could do it. So I called the company directly. I couldn't wait, and then they hired me. So that's how I got into the trade, and that was in about 2003. I wanted to prove him wrong. and this is where I'm at now. But it was the single best decision I've ever made.
So you had family that was in the union. It wasn't like you got grandfathered in per se, like your dad or your grandfather or something like that.
So I had to do my part. I had to go through the mud like everybody else at the beginning. I had nobody helping me in this trade. I had to do it on my own.
Very sink or swim.
Yes. And that was a little bit of a different time too. Racism was there at the time, but it's gotten better since then. It is still out there, but we have contracts that do help with that.
I've never experienced like racism in any capacity like that you may have. So when you got into the industry, how did that feel? Like what was that like? If you don't mind me also asking, from almost 20 years ago to now, how has that changed?
Yeah, getting into the trade was actually pretty intimidating. I was kind of getting out of my comfort zone. And this carried on into probably my 30s. I'm essentially the minority going into some of these lunchrooms and having to combat that, by working harder than anybody else. Like that was my mindset, was to be the best possible tradesperson. So they'd leave me alone about, any kind of racism.
I'm guessing like combating systemic racism was a big thing, and like the way you went about that was just by showing up, punching in, punching out, and
Yes.
like really going above and beyond with your work ethic to be like, look, I am who I am, and this is the craft I have. Like this is what I can do to like essentially earn your peers' respect.
Yes, that was kind of my mindset, was to be the best I could possibly be at the trade, right? At whatever they threw at me. I didn't want to be bottom of the totem pole per se. I wanted to be the best at the trade.
Do you ever feel like maybe because you had to push yourself in order to get your peers' respect or acknowledgement that you were compromising your own well-being or mental health?
I think I should have looked into it a little bit more. But when I first got into the trade, there was no resources like there is now. This kind of information, that information that could have helped my mental health at the time wasn't out there.
So it did, in a sense, take a toll on you a bit?
Yeah, I'm in my 40s now, and I'm kind of, I'm comfortable about understanding, who I am, my rights.
Being First Nation, and at the age you're at now, what is some advice you would give to the youth or younger First Nations that want to get into the trades, that want to pursue a career, whether that be in the oil and gas sector or oil sands with the trades, commercial? What is some stuff you would say?
Get out of your comfort zone. That fear you have, put it to the side. You got to try different things. Like not everybody is going to be a doctor. Not everybody's going to be a lawyer.
There's nothing wrong with that.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Like you said, not everyone's going to be a doctor, this and that, and there's nothing wrong with that. And you might not find your calling or exactly where you're supposed to be in life right away. Like some people out of high school, I remember when I graduated, boom, they knew where they were going, and that was the career, and they stuck with it, and I've been very content with that life. Whereas myself, it took me job after job before I finally found the one. I'm like, yo, this is it.
Commenting on that, so average age that we generally get coming in here to see us is about 26 to 27. So what'll happen, I think, is people go through these different jobs, in their younger years before they get to a place where they say, I need something stable. I need something long-term. They'll come and see us, want to get into the trade. We'll give them, resources on where they could go to some of the contractors. That opportunity, like I had in 2003 as a laborer, turns into apprenticeship, turns into becoming a journey person. You could be, from there, it's a progression of things. From there, you could be a project manager, then a business owner, estimator. It just kind of balloons from, once you get your ticket.
I guess two other questions I might have for you is like, when you were on the tools, what was a union to you? What did it mean to be in a union?
I think for me, you get what you put into it. You get what you put into the union. You have to do your part to be involved in the union. I would say for my time, when I worked commercial, I wasn't involved as I was as a refactory worker. More involved on that side, but I wish I was more involved on the commercial side.
Like, are you talking like going to meetings, or are they involved in which ways?
Meetings, I wish I would have gotten the executive when I was on the tools and kind of had more say in what we did here at the facility.
What was that like? pivotal point, or like that changing moment where when you went on the industrial side where you're like, I'm going to be more involved, I'm going to be more proactive?
I think it was more people were involved on that end of things.
So there was more of an influence.
I feel like it was a little stronger. So that's what we're trying to change now. Trying to, give more information to members on why it's important to come to these meetings, why it's important to come to functions, voice your concerns, ask questions, educate yourself. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get out on social media. Like we just established a new website not too long ago and sending out information via email as well. Okay.
So as an organizer, what does it mean to be in a union, or what does a union mean to you?
It means strength, confidence, and backing and support. It's representation.
What would you say to people who, for example, have never been in a union, who have no experience in unions, never been grandfathered, no nothing, right? And they're getting into a union. What is some advice you'd want to give to them?
Be involved. Take a little bit of time to ask questions and come to these meetings. Educate yourself. Ask us questions. We're your best resource for information for your rights as a worker in Alberta. You're paying for this. You're paying for this out of working dues. I think it's a good idea to be involved to see where your money is going. Your pension, where is that going? Where is it going in the next 10 years? Where is it going in 15 years? What are you contributing to it? Those are things you have to be involved in. Also, negotiations, our contracts. Where's your rates going? If we have a meeting on wage allocations, you want to be involved in that. You don't want, 5 people deciding for the other 400 in the union. You want to have a say in that.
What does the average union meeting kind of look like?
Order of things.
Yeah.
Okay, so generally we'll have a call to order. Everybody's present from the executive, and then we'll go through generally financials. And this is where the transparency comes in with membership. This is where we explain where dollars went. So this is union members' money. That's why it's important to be involved. That's the time to ask questions. And then we'll talk about things like I said earlier, upcoming contracts, negotiations, what's on the go for work for the year, people that might be in distress, if somebody needs help or, they're in a hospital or whatever. So it's generally, giving information about what's in the past, what's right now, what's coming up.